I found a box in my attic with my wife's name on it, written in handwriting that wasn't hers. Inside was a wedding album. Her in a white dress I'd never seen, smiling at a man I'd never met. Underneath it, a marriage certificate, her name, a stranger's name, and a date 13 years before I ever met her. 11 years of marriage, and I never knew my wife had a husband before me. If you've ever discovered something about someone you loved that changed everything you thought you knew, stay with me. Subscribe now, because this story only gets darker from here. My name's Ryan. I'm 38 years old, and until last Saturday, I would have told you I had the best marriage of anyone I knew. Sarah and I met 11 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. She spilled lemonade on my shoes and apologized so many times I finally had to tell her to stop, just so I could ask for her number. 6 months later, we were engaged. A year after that, married in her parents' backyard under string lights, 40 guests, her father crying through the whole ceremony. We built a life, the slow, honest way. I worked construction management. She worked as a school counselor. We bought a small house with a crooked front porch we always said we'd fix and never did. We had 2 kids, Maddie, who's 9 now, and Cole, who just turned 6. Sarah was the kind of mother who remembered every teacher's name, every allergy, every stuffed animal that had to come on every trip. She was also, in every way that mattered, an open book. Or so I thought. She talked about her childhood in Ohio, her strict father, her mother who passed when she was 22. She never talked much about her early 20s, but I never pushed. Everyone has a few years they'd rather skip over. I trusted her completely. Not the kind of trust you have to remind yourself of, the kind that's just quiet, in the background, like breathing. I never checked her phone, never questioned a late night at work. 11 years, and not once did I think there was a version of Sarah I didn't know. That Saturday started like any other. Cole had a birthday party to get to, and I needed the Christmas decorations from the attic to donate. Sarah wanted to declutter before the holidays hit. I climbed up there with a flashlight between my teeth, moving boxes, half listening to my kids fighting over cereal downstairs. And that's when I saw it. Pushed into the far corner, behind the winter coats we never wear anymore. A cardboard box, taped shut, soft with age. Written on the side, in handwriting I didn't recognize. Sarah, just her name, nothing else. I should have called down to her right then, asked what it was. Instead, something in me, curiosity, instinct, I don't know, made me pull it toward the light and start peeling back the tape. The tape came off in brittle strips. Inside, on top, was a photo album with a cracked leather cover, the kind nobody buys anymore. I opened it, and my stomach dropped straight through the floor. The first photo was a wedding photo. Sarah younger, maybe 19 or 20, in a white gown I had never seen in my life, standing beside a man I had never met. She was smiling at him exactly the way she smiles at me in our own wedding photos. His hand rested on her waist, like he'd known her forever. I kept turning pages. A church wedding. A reception hall full of strangers, laughing, dancing, toasting. Sarah cutting a cake, a man's fingers wrapped around hers on the knife. Underneath the album was a folded document, the paper thin and soft from being handled. My hands were shaking so badly I almost tore it trying to open it. A marriage certificate. Sarah's full name. A date 13 years ago. 4 years before I ever met her. And a name I had never once heard her say in 11 years of marriage. Daniel Whitfield. There was more in that box. A small velvet ring box, the gold band inside worn smooth from years of being worn. A bundle of letters tied together with string. The ink faded but still legible. I only let myself read one line before I forced the letter closed. I know you're scared, but I need you to come home. Downstairs, I could hear Sarah laughing at something with Maddie. That same easy laugh that used to be the best sound in my world. And I sat there in the attic dust with a stranger's wedding photo in my hands, realizing I had built 11 years of my life on top of a woman I apparently didn't know at all. Who was Daniel Whitfield? And why had my wife erased him so completely that I never even suspected he existed? I didn't confront her that day. I told myself I needed to understand first that if I walked downstairs and just started asking questions, I'd fall apart in front of the kids. So I put the box back exactly where I found it, and I started digging on my own. That night, after Sarah went to bed, I sat in my truck in the driveway with my phone, searching Daniel Whitfield plus every city Sarah had ever mentioned living in. Nothing solid. Too common a name. The next few nights became a pattern. Sarah asleep by 10, me wide awake until 2 in the morning, scrolling through public records, old news archives, anything I could find. I found a marriage index that confirmed the date on the certificate. I found an old newspaper clipping a small town paper from Ohio, a wedding announcement, a black and white photo of the same two faces from the album. I started noticing how tired I looked in the mirror. Sarah asked twice that week if I was feeling okay. I lied both times. On Thursday, I drove 2 hours to the small Ohio town where Sarah grew up, telling her I had a site inspection out of town. I found an old diner, the kind of place where the waitresses have worked there since before I was born, and I asked around, careful, casual. An older woman behind the counter went quiet when I said Sarah's maiden name. "You knew her?" I asked. She looked at me a long moment. Everybody around here knew her, and her husband. She said the word husband like it left a bad taste. That family kept to themselves, mostly. After what happened, she just disappeared. Never came back, far as I know. After what happened? I asked. She wiped down the counter, not looking at me anymore. Not my story to tell, sweetheart. You should ask her yourself. I drove home with more questions than I started with, and a knot in my chest that hadn't loosened in 5 days. Before we go further, if you're new here, this channel tells real, raw stories about marriage, betrayal, and the secrets people carry. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because what Sarah tells him next is going to change how you see everything so far. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Friday night, after the kids were finally asleep, I sat down across from Sarah at our kitchen table and set the marriage certificate down in front of her without a word. She looked at it, then at me, and her face went completely white. "Where did you get this?" she said. It wasn't even a question. Her voice had gone flat, careful, like she was walking across ice. "The attic. I found the whole box, Sarah. The album, the letters, the ring." My voice cracked on the last word. "Who is Daniel Whitfield?" She didn't answer right away. She just sat there, staring at the certificate like it was something dangerous. Her hands were trembling in her lap. "I was going to tell you," she finally said. "I swear I was going to tell you. I didn't know how. I didn't know if there was ever going to be a right time." 11 years, Sarah. We got married. We had kids. You let me believe. I know." Her voice broke. Tears were already running down her face. "I know what I let you believe. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." I asked her again, quieter this time, because I could see she was already breaking apart. "Who was he?" She wiped her face with the back of her hand, took a long, shaking breath, and finally looked up at me. "He was my husband before you," she said. "I was 19. And it wasn't Ryan. It wasn't like what we have. It wasn't anything close." What she told me next took almost an hour, and by the end of it, I understood why she'd buried that box in the corner of an attic and tried to bury the truth right along with it. She said her family had known the Whitfields for years old, friends of her father's, wealthy, respected in their small town. When Daniel started courting her at 18, her father practically arranged the whole thing himself. She said she felt like she didn't have a real choice. She was young, scared of disappointing her father, and Daniel seemed charming, at first, in public. In private, she said, he was someone else entirely. She described small things first, the way he'd criticize what she wore before they left the house, the way he'd go quiet and cold for days over nothing. Then it got worse, controlling her money, controlling who she saw, And eventually, it turned physical. I stayed almost 3 years, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I kept thinking I could fix it. I kept thinking it was my fault somehow. She looked down at her hands. The night I finally left, I didn't take anything. Not even a bag. I just walked out and drove until I didn't recognize the road anymore. She said her divorce took nearly a year to finalize because Daniel fought it, dragged it out, tried to control her even in leaving. When it was finally over, she moved 3 states away, changed everything she could about her life, and swore she'd never let anyone know that version of her had existed. Then I met you, she said, finally looking at me. And you were so kind and so steady. And I was so afraid that if you knew, you'd see me differently. That you'd think I was broken. So I never told you. And then it was 5 years, and then 10. And I didn't know how to bring it up without it looking like I'd been lying the whole time. You were, I said quietly. Not cruel, just true. I know, she whispered. I thought that was the whole story. I was wrong. 2 days after our conversation, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice, calm, almost friendly. Is this Ryan, Sarah's husband? My whole body went cold. Who is this? Daniel Whitfield, he said, like it was the easiest thing in the world to say. I think you found my old wedding photos. I mailed that box to your house myself, about 3 weeks ago. Figured it was time Sarah's new husband knew who he married. I stood there gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. He hadn't sent it to Sarah. He'd sent it to me. He'd planned this, waited, watched, and mailed it straight into my hands, knowing exactly what it would do to us. Stay away from my family, I told him, and hung up before he could say another word. When I told Sarah, she went pale all over again, but this time it wasn't guilt on her face. It was fear. He's done this before, she said. Contacted people from my old life. Showed up places. I thought he'd finally stopped. After all these years. She grabbed my hand, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I understood she hadn't just been hiding a secret from me. She'd been trying to protect our family from a man who had never really let her go. This is where the story turns. If you want to see how Ryan and Sarah handle a man who refuses to disappear, make sure you're subscribed. This channel drops a new story like this every week, and you don't want to miss what happens next. That week, we filed a report with the local police and got a restraining order started, just in case. But the bigger decision wasn't legal. It was between me and Sarah. I sat with it for days. Part of me kept circling back to the lie. 11 years of marriage built on something she never told me. But another part of me couldn't stop picturing a 19-year-old girl too scared to say no to her own father, spending 3 years with a man who made her feel like nothing. One night, Sarah found me on the back porch, staring at nothing. If you want to leave, she said quietly, I'll understand. I won't fight you on it. I looked at her, really looked at her, the way I used to before all this. The mother who never forgot a single detail about our kids. The woman who spilled lemonade on my shoes and apologized 11 times. I'm not leaving, I said. But I need you to promise me something. No more boxes in the attic. No more parts of you I'm not allowed to see. She started crying again, but this time it looked like relief. I promise. It's been 2 months now. Daniel hasn't contacted us again. The restraining order and a very direct call from our lawyer seemed to do the trick. Sarah started seeing a therapist, something she said she should have done 13 years ago. We're rebuilding, slowly, the way you rebuild anything that matters, one honest conversation at a time. I used to think trust meant never having questions. Now I think it means being brave enough to ask them, and brave enough to answer. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe and leave a comment telling me what you would have done in Ryan's place. And if you know someone who needed to hear a story like this today, share it with them. I'll see you in the next one.